Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and this episode is sponsored by 12th Street Sound. Listeners of this show get access to a special rate. You can get up to 20% off your next recording, mixing, production project at 12th Street Sound here in my home city, New Westminster, BC. That's all thanks to Anthony Senarini, who's one of the biggest boosters and supporters this podcast has ever seen in its young life. And Anthony is running this promotion until the end of this month. That's right, September 30th, 2022. Between now and then, you can get up to 20% off. Learn more about this offer at 12thstreet.ca/RCP for Rhythm Changes Podcast. Go to that page, learn more about some of the things he thinks it might be suited for. And if you've got something else in mind, you can reach out to him and he'll still give you that 20% off. Go to 12thstreet.ca/RCP and check out the offer that Anthony has cooked up just for listeners of this show. Get going on your next project now. Thanks to Anthony at 12th Street for sponsoring and supporting this podcast. This episode is sponsored by Railtown Mastering. I've had a lot of fun teasing what I'm up to as I read the sponsorship for Andrew Downton, who is a great colleague of mine who runs the studio Railtown Mastering in Vancouver. It's my recommendation for you to get your music mastered locally because Andrew has mastered my first album, and as you know, he is now mastering my second. I've gotten it back from him. I've checked it out. I dig it. I have now uploaded it to the streaming services, to Bandcamp, because that's what you do with masters. That's how you prepare the final files from your mixes that you're getting ready to release. I'm getting ready, and I'm feeling good about it thanks to Andrew. So if you want to work with him to get your music mastered, email him at andrew@railtownmastering.com. That's andrew@railtownmastering.com. Or to learn more, go to railtownmastering.com. Check out who he's worked with, see his rates, figure out what's going on, but make sure get your music mastered locally with him this year.
I like the way you said, Laura. We had such a fun time together, writing songs about loss and death. It was great.
That's true.
But it's true.
Vocals and guitar is a duo that you see a lot. I've covered Amber Sang and Alvin Brendan and their album previously on this podcast and at Rhythm Changes. This is something different. This is an album that has some other instruments thrown into. Sometimes it's quite heavy, but at other times it's just totally fun. And at the end of the day, it's made by two extremely sweet people who I had a great time talking to. That's up next. You're listening to the only weekly interview podcast about jazz and creative music in Canada. Our two guests today are a vocalist and guitarist, respectively, who just released a collaborative album together called StringSongs. It is another entry in their history of collaborating together, and this time they have brought along John Bentley on saxophone and Peggy Lee to contribute to string arrangements of the tunes as well. So you have string, sax, and you have vocals and guitar on a whole bunch of lovely tunes. You may or may not have heard them at Frankie's Jazz Club and at the Fort Langley Jazz Festival playing at Sava Cafe recently. I'm excited to hear them play again soon. These are some of the legends of our local scene here who are always nice to talk to and who have been very generous to students like me. So please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Laura Crema and Bill Coon.
Great to be here, Will.
Thank you so much, Will. Such a pleasure to be here.
All right. It is awesome to have you. I think a fun place to start would be the story of Happy Place. So you have a track called Happy Place. It sounds like what it's called. It's a very happy tune. And you even do that thing where you leave in kind of some laughter at the end of the track, like you just kind of ripped it off in the studio and had a great old time. So I was wondering if there's some heavier tracks on this album, maybe some heavier themes, and we can get into that later. But could you maybe just sum up the life story of Happy Place, so to speak, and the experience of putting that one together, because I enjoyed it a lot?
I'll defer to Laura on that because she is the person who really has got that tune going. So
Okay. Well, that tune was as you mentioned. There's a lot of heavier tunes on the album, and they're great. I mean, there are a lot of intense, introspective tunes, but I felt like we really needed like a palate cleanser in between some of them.
Yeah.
And so then I just was fooling around with a melody line, and I was listening to a song, and I thought, oh, I love the feel of that. It puts me into a happy place. So it was exactly that. I sort of came up with this line, and then I was just singing it. Then I brought it to Bill, and he, of course, added to it, and then we recorded it. It was pretty quick process with that one. But I really have to say, I do feel happy when I play that or sing that. So it is that we kept with it. Because I was like, oh, this is my happy place. You were making a joke about it, but then it suited the tune.
Yeah.
Bill, you cannot.
Yeah. We definitely made a joke about the name. But it's interesting, right? Because, like one of the things about this record is that we both contributed lyrics. Like a lot of people might say, well, or might think that, well, Laura, of course, wrote all the lyrics and Bill wrote all the music, but it's not like that at all. In this case, Laura wrote the melody, but there were no lyrics to deal with. We decided not to go with lyrics. So we decided not to overthink this one and keep it light and a bit frothy and a bit like you're on vacation. So we kind of took a vacation from the heavy themes for 1-2.
Yeah, and the liner notes tell that story too. This is what you wrote on your half of the liner notes, Bill, about that. I've got it in front of me. You said, I imagine going to the studio and capturing some of our favorite jazz standards, and voila, an album. However, the project took a big and welcome detour, so instead of the familiar, we challenged each other. We began writing music and lyrics together. Let me be clear, I love words, but I've never written lyrics, so I was well out of my comfort zone. I enjoyed that. Yeah.
So true. And that's one of the great things about working with Laura is I don't know, we could bounce ideas off of each other, and I think it was a safe place to do so, which was nice.
Yeah, it was a really nice process. It was really safe to both offer melody and Lyrics. And also, Bill, he's a fantastic lyricist too. Like he came up with many of the lyrics, and I was really quite inspired too in terms of my own lyric. And he's so prolific as well, so that was really challenging for me to just like keep up with Bill too, because he if I didn't have those lyrics ready, he'd be like, well, I have another another version here. That was really challenging. He'd say, I've got this great tune, could you come up with some lyrics? And then it would take a bit of time for me, and then he would have like a set of lyrics. So that was great. That was really inspiring. And then we just really bounced ideas off each other too, lyrically.
Yeah. And you recorded it at Demitone with Dave Sekula. So did you overdubs when you did John Bentley and Peggy Lee's contributions, when you brought them into the album? Did they go there to record too? Did they contribute them from their places? Did you ever all play live in the same room? How did that all shake down?
We didn't play live in the same room, all of us. But for example, on some of the tunes, like String Song, for example, Laura was there and I was there and Peggy was there. So the three of us recorded that particular part together. But I think maybe I had also an overdubbed guitar part. I can't remember now, but I think maybe I did. So that was kind of an interesting process. So some of it was live, and then okay, well let's add something else to this. Let's add the solo to this. But now that I'm thinking of it, is that actually what happened? I'd have to listen to the track again. Do you remember, Laura, on that one?
StringSongs. I think that was right off the floor. Like we did it all there.
Floor. Okay.
I don't think
no
we.
overdubs.
I mean, we recorded that there, and then I think we edited some solos. And stuff.
You're right. Actually, now that I think of it.
Yeah. I actually have something in the notes to throw at you about StringSongs, and it reveals that, yes, this is true. Like when you listen through the album, you can actually tell that this one was crafted with you and Peggy together, because if you listen to it in stereo, the stereo presentation, the panning on that track is different than all the other ones. It's almost like you're playing it's almost like you're playing the album as a concert, and Laura steps off to the side of the stage to make more room for Peggy to play cello. Like you can hear, I think like Laura, you move over to the left on that track, and like you're not on any of the other ones. So yeah, that's totally it. I actually had that.
That's so interesting. That's so fascinating, huh?
The genius of Dave Sekula, I think.
Yeah. So he must have really kind of placed you in the mix where he saw you record. He's so detail oriented, right? He's so great that way. I was telling Bill before we started rolling about the experience I had when I recorded with him. He's so detail oriented that you could just imagine him like jotting down something about where you were when you three of you did that together.
That's so true. That's so true. It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. I also thought that you did such a great job of like introducing each new instrument in the album sequence, because you start off right with Arrow and the Song, and that's kind of a key tune to the story of how you created the album together, right? But then, that tune focusing a lot on both of you, and like there's vocal overdubs on it and such too. But then track 2, the saxophone makes a really strong impression. Track 3, the strings make a really strong impression. And before too long, you've switched to nylon guitar, Bill. So like, even though it's a very kind of minimal project, like no bass, no drums, no traditional rhythm section, like you've really kind of changed it up track over track, and there's a lot of variation, even though it's like a very minimal project. It's cool.
Nice. Yeah, and I think when we decide on the order, I think I was thinking about that. Laura and I talked about that, because it's always difficult. I don't know about you, Will, but when you make an album, you made all this music, and then one of the last things you do is actually decide what order people are going to listen to this, and I'm absolutely not sure that people listen in the order that it's put in, because of shuffle and because people just sometimes listen to one tune. But I come from the old school of listening to albums, LPs, and having side 1 and side 2. So I don't know, I kind of like the idea of arranging the order, even though I do not find it easy. But that was one of the things that helped us. I think we talked about this, Laura, right? The idea of, okay, we'll just present ourselves without John and Peggy, without the sax and strings, and then we'll kind of add them in.
Definitely. I think, yeah, we definitely thought about that and how we would introduce the other voices. But we did take some time with it. I think we had a few different orders until we finalized on that one.
Yeah. So you both have played together before quite a bit. And when I was prepping for this, I found something that came from before Laura, a 2021 last year Jazz Fest gig that you did. And it was an article in the Georgia Straight, and with Steve Newton's byline. And he had one line in there that I thought was interesting, and maybe was the beginning of a story that we could bring up here, maybe, unless it's it's random and it's not quite as connected. But what he wrote, one of the things he wrote was, this is what he said about Laura, about you starting to collaborate with Bill. He wrote, Crema hooked up with him several years ago at the suggestion of a bass player she was working with. So who was that?
That was Paul Rushka, who Paul and I, we really, Paul was like somebody I met early on when I started performing. I think somehow we connected and we clicked, and we did a lot of gigs together. I think we had a regular gig at the Latin Quarter on Commercial Drive every Wednesday night for, I don't know, was it 10 years? Something crazy like that. Like it was crazy. A long time. And so Paul and I, we played a lot together. We had kind of rotating other instruments coming in with us. But yeah, Paul was he was very instrumental in suggesting like Bill, and just obviously loved Bill as I do, and his playing and his person and who he is. And so yeah, definitely Paul Rushka was the bass player. Paul and I, we played a lot over the years together. I miss him, sadly. He's no longer living in Vancouver, but
we've lost him to the Maritimes, it seems. But yeah, I think my first real memory of playing with you is a rehearsal where Serafina is in a snuggly wrap right in front of you, and you're singing, and we're rehearsing at this house that. Anyways, yeah, I thought that was amazing. Here, she's taking care of her baby, and she's also doing this rehearsal, and yeah, it was cool. Definitely, Paul was there. It was kind of a cool introduction to you, and the fact that just yesterday we were jamming with Serafina at
That's
your place,
right. That's
and now
right.
she's turned into quite a vocalist herself. That's quite a journey there.
That's so interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I remember that rehearsal for a Jazz Fest gig, and I forget how old she was, but she must have been
Pretty
like
young, eh?
fairly newborn because she
Yeah,
was
yeah,
born at the end of November, and so that was probably rehearsal for whatever June. So
right.
I remember like having like not frantic, but you know when when you've just given birth or have a new baby, it's a lot to take on. Anyways,
I can
yeah, what
only
you do,
imagine.
hey? I
I can only
mean,
imagine.
women have been doing it forever. It's not anything new, but
No, it's true. Yeah, I was pretty amazed that you were able to do that, multitask. So that means we've been actually working together for how old is Serafina now?
well,
16?
she's 16, yeah.
Yeah, so probably 15 years then.
Wow. Yeah, I heard Bill play with Paul Rushka at the Tangent multiple times in past years, so I heard you two collaborate instrumentally before.
Yeah, Paul and I played a lot together for sure. Yeah, yeah, I miss that guy. I mean, he kind of left a big hole in the
Hmm.
jazz scene here when he left, and but the positive thing is I know that he's doing great work out in at Saint FX, and I know that he's spreading great advice and great vibes about playing. So that makes me happy too.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, yeah, he has left a huge hole. I really, yeah, I like I said, Paul, I sort of, I learned so much playing with him and working with him over those years, and yeah, but yeah, like you said, he's doing great work and he's doing well.
Yeah. So when did you both go into the studio with Dave at Demitone to record this album? When did that actually take place?
Uh, yeah, it was over a period of time for sure. And I think one of the things that happened was because of COVID, you would record some stuff and then it was like, okay, you know what? We're not comfortable going into that small space right now because of the virus and how much it's spreading. And so then the next time we could get in there would be when we all felt good enough to do that or when it was even allowed in a way. So it really took some time. Plus the whole process of how are we going to do this? It's not just a duo album anymore, and getting everyone's schedules together. And Peggy was traveling, and then also John lives on the Sunshine Coast. So, but we were kind of determined to use those sounds and those particular people because I think both Laura and I really envisioned that on the record. And now that I listen to it, I go, yeah, I'm glad we did.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it was. I think we at the end of the year 2020. I think we went in for we recorded, and then I think we had scheduled some other recording dates, but I got COVID, I think,
Right.
then it was like getting over that, and then feeling comfortable during when the pandemic was in its full force there. So yeah, definitely, it took us some time to reschedule and make it all work with
Make it all work.
everybody.
And if anyone's ever been in Demitone, well, some of your listeners may have been in Demitone Studio, but you have to really imagine a very close space, right? You really have to be comfortable, even with masks on. I mean, there's not a lot of room, and it's a lovely, intimate space, but we're not talking about, Columbia recording studios here with high ceilings. It's a
Yeah.
it's a basement, which basically that when it's an amazing studio because Chris Nelson is the fellow who originally created that studio, and then it got changed somewhat. But without him, I don't think that would have ever happened. And that's another great Vancouver bassist who was unfortunately died, but was a huge part of this
Yeah,
community.
I never got to know him. Yeah.
I don't know, just a very
Hmm.
thoughtful and he could be very an intense guy too. He also, I believe he played with the opera orchestra, so he played classical as well as jazz. But he played with Hugh Fraser for many years. Really integral part of the jazz scene in
Yeah.
Vancouver.
Um, there were these two tracks that I thought had one of the most evocative themes on the album, and this is where it's kind of the heavier. We got the minor keys and we got the lyrics that are heavier. And there's track 2, which is Blue Mist, and then there is also track 6, which is August Blue. And my time listening to the album, the combined sound of those two tracks is the mood that I'm left with after I listened to it. Those two tracks just stand out as having a really kind of inviting, but also a heavier mood. And I suppose those are two of my favorite tracks on there. And, it reminds me of different things. I'm not sure exactly what. Like, I know when I listened to Blue Mist, when I put that track on for the first time, I thought of the jazz standard Angel Eyes. Maybe because it's in the same key or because the melody does some of the same kind of things. But I just thought about that tune. But then that mood ended up kind of being the mood that the album left me with after having listened to it a few times,
We just did a video of Blue Mist, right, Laura?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, so
Yeah,
it's not
like-
out yet.
yeah,
We just
yeah.
recorded it yesterday, to tell you the truth. We played that tune on the video like about 25 times. Laura sang it, and every time you sang it, Laura, it sounded great. Like I kind of felt like I was playing with John Coltrane, and there's the stories about John
Jeez.
Coltrane doing 25 takes of My Favorite Things, and each one was a little bit different.
Huh.
It
No
was
pressure.
cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just, kind of playing because it could barely. If I played too loud, I couldn't hear the recording. But you were really singing.
Well, I think to make it look authentic, I mean, I think you have to sing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, then I don't
Yeah.
know. It'd be hard to sort of like pretend to sing it. But it was actually quite fun. I mean, in some ways, that was an interesting process because, like you say, well, that is a heavier tune. And I remember once when we were mixing it with Dave Sekula, he was like, and we were hearing it, and he was like, okay, we've got to do something else. It was
Yeah.
like relentless,
Yeah.
like, just because it is pretty, yeah. I don't know what, like you say, the feeling, to describe that feeling. Not to, yeah, there's a hopefulness in a way, but it also is pretty bleak kind of sense of too, in a sense. But then the lyric has a lightness or has, talking about nature and beauty. But yeah, I actually found that helpful to do it that many times because it didn't seem that dark after. It was like I kind of found some more sort of lightness and a little bit of joy in that, in a sense.
Oh, that's
Go
cool.
figure. I don't know.
Cool. Yeah. Well, that was a tune that I wrote while I was in Banff, actually, and so I was really describing the nature of Banff, or maybe the nature that one couldn't see in Banff. And these lyrics kind of came to me, and so did the melody at the same time, which was kind of strange. And it might have even been one of the first tunes that I actually wrote words to. But I got quite excited about it. I thought, I think I've got something here. And I remember sending it to Laura right away and saying, "What do you think of this?" And then she wrote a second verse, and I guess the rest is history.
Yeah.
And John brings so much to it as well in terms of what he just
Yes.
he's such an amazing artist in that he really I respect him so much. Like he's able to just support and also express and meld Bill and our voices with his, and then bring something else. So yeah, he's such a great player, and he did a beautiful job.
Yeah, a great player, a thoughtful player. Really, he's not just playing the licks that he knows in a way, like he's really taking into account the song, and he's trying to play the song, and I really appreciate that in his playing.
Yeah, one of my favorite moments on the whole record is his solo on Heart Flame on that track. Big
Yeah,
solo.
that's
One of
quite
the most kind of
exceptional. Yeah.
energetic moments where it activates in a different sort of way than any other track or part of the record.
Yeah, right. And then we're actually all four of us are playing at once, which is kind of exciting.
So yeah, that Heart Flame track, that's the one where all four musicians are on it.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. And then Laura, you've made multiple albums as an artist yourself, and you've presented different material on those albums. You've played with different things. Maybe walk back through some of the moments that stand out to you, like on your previous albums or through your own discography, your artist history. For a listener who hasn't checked out any of your music before, other than this album, what would they look back on? What could they go find and listen to?
There's a pop album out there, or not a pop. I would say like I don't know. It's more of a
Like a
rock.
roots album.
No, it's more kind of like almost like not Portishead, but there's kind of a sound similar to that
Oh,
guitar based that band called, I don't think you could find it anywhere. It's called The Dreaming. I think
I don't know about this. The
yeah,
Dreaming.
yeah. So this was
You never played
this
this
was
for me?
way back when, and there's a lot of it that I like. I just can't hear. But that was kind of fun, and I did write all the lyrics to that album, that complete album.
What?
Yeah. So this is like with not jazz players, but actually Matt, who did the graphics for the album, was the drummer for that.
The graphics for StringSongs.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
Right.
So that was, I guess, my first. I did a recording, just like a self-titled one with Miles Black and Paul Rushka. So that was sort of like a kind of a calling card where you sort of had to have something to get to get gigs or be presented, that type of thing. That was fun. And then after that, I went to Banff to study with Sheila Jordan and Jay Clayton, and I met the great pianist David Restivo, and I did a recording at Banff called Almost Blue. And then I did a couple of more standard albums with a couple of original tunes. Spring is Here with George McFetrick, a great piano player that I worked with for many years, and Bill's also on that as well. Paul Rushka and Nino Di Pasquale and Paul Townsend. And then I did another album called Photographia, which has Sharon Minamoto, but same players with Joe Poole on drums on that. That's been fantastic. And then the previous one to this album was kind of a country roots folk album that I just started really enjoying that music. My grandfather was a big Hank Snow. He loved country music, and so I did listen to it a lot growing up, that music. And I work with Scott Smith, who's a multi-instrumentalist and plays steel guitar as well as banjo and dobro and stuff. So we collaborated on that. I sort of produced it together, and I got a bunch of songs that I thought that I wanted to record. And then with Bill, it was really, he had done a writing project with a wonderful singer-songwriter, and I heard that album and I loved it. And I know he was interested in writing lyrics. I guess the one with that you recorded with, you didn't write the lyrics, though, Bill.
With Christina Olson. Yeah, it was more a collaboration where it was lyrics and music, and she did the lyrics. Yeah.
It really happened naturally that we decided to co-create and co-write together, and we had a really fantastic time. Like, it was, I don't think, I was saying this a couple days ago, I don't think we would have maybe, or I wouldn't have anyways, written those songs and those lyrics if it wasn't for that collaboration. That's the kind of beautiful thing about a collaboration, where those just coming together and writing something completely unique. And yeah, it was a wonderful process, and we had a lot of fun, and we got to it was really nice to take our time, because it did happen over a few years, where we could like really talk about a lyric and about dreams and about there wasn't any big push to actually, like, there wasn't a deadline until I got a grant. We got a grant, and then we said, okay, we have to figure it all out.
And even that was pushed
That
back
was
because
pushed
of
up
COVID.
too, yeah. I mean, I really am attracted to songs, and I love all genres. Like, I like when I went to BCC, I did a lot of like electronic music, and I'm always like, I want to get back to doing that. So I just do really love all genres, and I don't know, and there's so many wonderful songs that are out there, and they sort of like grab onto you and they hold on to you, and you're like, okay, this is something I have to do. That was really with the country music. It was like they were kind of like ripping at my heart, all the whole Hank Williams, the amazing tunes that he wrote, and I was just like, just really inspiring. So and then this is, like you say, a completely different project, but in some ways maybe does have a connection, because there is not that it's country at all, but there's definitely the folk element that kind of, Bill's bringing his own, singer-songwriter approach. So, and that coming together kind of, anyways.
I like the way you said, Laura, like, oh, we had such a fun time together writing songs about loss and death. It was great.
That's true.
But it's true. It's true, because a lot of the songs, they are about people who have passed, or about lost love or about, like there's a lot of sadness, and there was sadness going on in both our lives at that time, people that we were losing. But you're right. I think that's the point, is that uh, it was important in almost to write the songs. It was helpful, and as you say, it was fun.
I think that's a lovely place to wrap it up. I really look forward to seeing you both out there in the community, and I have a lot of respect for everything that each of you have done and what you've done together. I really enjoyed the album, so thank you both for taking the time to chat with me today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Will.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you like what you hear, I invite you to become a member of Rhythm Changes today on our website. By doing so, you'll get the free weekly article, and you can check out new things happening, new albums coming out, like this week's article available now, an album by Ben Sigerson, talented young piano player. You can check that out and get future articles when you become a member for free today. Sign up and get the free weekly article at rhythmchanges.ca.